Welcome everyone to another session of With Purpose. And today we are very excited to welcome Geeta Pyne, who is the Senior Managing Director and Chief Architect of TIAA. With over 25 years of experience, Geeta is trailblazing technology leader, driving enterprise architecture, data strategy, and digital transformation at leading organizations like TIAA, Intuit, Zuora, and VMware. As Chief Architect at TIAA, she leads enterprise architecture strategies focused on modernizing infrastructure, accelerating platforms, and aligning tech with business goals. Her expertise spans SaaS architecture, AI solutions, hybrid computing, DevOps, and data analytics, enabling greater scalability and agility. Geeta also serves on advisory boards, including the Chief Architecture firm, SIM, Women in Architecture, and GTM Capital. Passionate about inclusion, she actively mentors emerging tech leaders and champions diversity in STEM. Geeta, we are truly honored to have you with us today, and we are really excited to get insights from you. Welcome.
Thank you so much. Good morning and good evening.
So just to start with, you started your career at ISRO working on some really cutting-edge projects like satellite image processing and India's first parallel computer. So was there an attraction to the software industry, or what made you move from it?
Absolutely. Great question. First of all, again, thank you so much for having me. I think this is the type of conversation that really excites me. So I'll always find time to kind of share to share and learn from each other. So I'll say yes, I'm a computer science software engineer. So my first job was at India's Space Research Organization, and I was in Ahmedabad, Gujarat in the Space Applications Center. So even though it was a space research, but me being a computer science engineer, my job was around software. So building software, building scalable software, building really highly resilient software. The only thing was it was about the data that we were capturing to the satellite. So basically processing satellite data, whether for remote sensing or for weather forecasting, and really had to do a lot of hardcore work, which is why you see the reference of working on India's first indigenous parallel computer, Param. So it was always about really solving hard problems and building, scalable software. Now, when I left ISRO, there were few things, I would say, factors that influenced my career at that point. Number one was that hunger and curiosity, continued my curiosity about, exploring the unknown. So when I left India, ISRO, I came to the United States, and I was the first person from my family to come all the way to US, right? So one was around really going and understanding and learning and just figuring things out. And at the worst case, you could be, okay, I don't like it, I can go back and do what I was doing. But so secondly, there was also a financial impact of what back then we could make as a software or scientist engineer at ISRO, and versus if I could come to US and get into the change of this currency between Indian rupees versus dollar, that would have given me the advantage of helping financially my family and anybody around me, right? I would say those were a couple of the drivers, but changing from space working to getting into other aspects of the software was when I came to US, that was due to the constraint because I was on a visa. And when you are not a US citizen, when you don't have a security clearance, you could not continue your space journey. So that's when I had to take a detour of, again, continue with my software, but I have to kind of put a stop to my dream of being a space scientist and continue whether working for NASA, Lockheed Martin or whatnot, and take whatever was available to me. And, life gives you chances, just pick it up and do it. So that was, I would say, why I chose what I did to do and continued still doing it.
Great. So, Geeta, you had an incredible journey across industries, from healthcare to cloud to financial services, from a tech point of view. So, what are the things that you have seen as are constant across the years, or has everything just changed in 2 or 3 years? Or how do you think like the technology life cycle is changing?
Wow, that's a billion-dollar question. So I would say, to summarize, a lot has changed, and of course the speed and the rate of changes, we haven't seen as much changes as we have seen since the last ChatGPT moment of November 22. But at the same time, at the other end, I would say some things haven't changed. And what I mean by that, right, I think one of my friends used to say back in the days that computer science is classical. It is the way we define, the way we, like, the means to the end has changed, and I'll give examples. But the problem, things that haven't changed, how do you identify what is the right problem to solve? How do you make sure that the problem you are able to decompose into bite-sized chunks? And how do you make sure that this problem is ultimately how you're tracking, that it is truly solving that, right? Whether you are solving the bit, satellite imagery to make sure that you able to interpret the data and the bits and bytes to understand how the satellite actually imaged the Earth, and is it truly representing that intent and defining the problem. Those things do not go away, right? The 100% understanding of critical thinking, 100% problem solving, those techniques have changed, but the heart of solving the problems haven't changed, right? And if I again break down that the series of steps that you need to take, if you can still thinking about, like, for example, for satellite data processing, the whole processing pipeline, the stages probably remains majority same. But what has really become, I would say, very exciting and for anybody to be able to do this now is, of course, the rate at which the technology has advanced. The rate the technology has been, I think, accessible. When internet happened, we know anybody, whether I'm sitting in India, like you sitting in Delhi, or I'm sitting in Silicon Valley in California, pretty much we had access to the similar kind of information because internet, kind of bridged that digital divide between across the world. Now, fast forward now, a couple of years back, November 2022, when ChatGPT came moment, democratization, like not only the access, the speed of connectivity, but now the English has become the common language of communicating or solving problems, right? And I think that's the differentiator, that now this technology is so pervasive, so ubiquitous, and so this unboundedness, abundantness of the technology around us, and making it so easy to be able to, anybody can talk to communicate just like you and I are talking. I think that's the fundamental shift. This is the seismic shift. This is a tectonic shift. This we have, at least in my lifetime, I haven't seen, and I don't think industry we have seen. So yes, some things haven't changed because you still have to be very good at identifying, having that curiosity and solving. But the other side, the means and the technology ends, anybody can, if they put their mind to it to learn something, they can, at the click of a button, almost they can learn and they can get to the outcome that they need to.
True.
Does that make sense to you? Are you seeing that in your side?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. So I would encourage everybody to, that should be the messaging for us. Nothing is really impossible almost these days. Whether you want to learn any new topic, any subject, you don't have to have a master's and PhD now to get a good enough understanding. Not a depth and breadth that a PhD will have, but you can have enough and start at solving any problem. And that's the beauty we are. And that democratization of technology, access to the technology, is the most exciting part to me.
So it's like jack of all, master of none.
I wouldn't say that. That will be not a good thing, not to be master of none. Like, you still have to master, but you can at least get a flavor of, and you can touch it, and you can feel it, and you can experiment. Then you can figure it out, is it yours or not.
Sure, got it. So, Geeta, when you think about your experience, like any particular project or initiative that you are, really proud of, where the tech strategy and business outcomes just click perfectly.
Yeah, the world is never perfect. So imperfectness is what makes it perfect. So I would not. But on a serious note, yes, I would say, among everything I've done, one of the times I would say I really cherish that memory of that initiative or the large scale transformation when I used to work for Aero Electronics, and I'm going back about 20 years back, and literally 20 years back or 19 years back. When I was assigned to one of the business unit as the lead architect for their whole end-to-end business transformation, it included several factors that could have very easily gone wrong. And right from, was I familiar with the business? Was I familiar with the technology? It also, my life happened, like I got married. I just got married, moved from New York to Boston. And because of this work, I had to travel every week from Boston to Denver, Colorado. So there was a lot of newness, lot of uncertainty in this, but I am really proud to say the strategy that we came up with, and obviously I was kind of a cog in the wheel back then. I was a lead architect. I was responsible for a lot of, things around technology, but I was learning the business on what the problem we are solving for, right? But being able to really articulate, what was the success of that was really having that clear synergy and understanding of what success meant for the business. What were the KPIs and metrics that the business was looking for? Case in point, whether the growth numbers, whether the revenue numbers, whether the consolidation numbers, whether the expansion scope, whether how quickly they will be able to grow through mergers and acquisitions. All these vectors and the metrics were very clearly articulated, so that when I put the tech strategy together, I could catch or match exactly if we did X, how might we measure, and how does that connect to the business. So this project involved, this was more than 2 years. It took me from January 2006 to June 2008 to from soup to nuts, from whiteboard to going live with the business and retiring the old systems. But that really was something that I still go back and figure out, what did we do right? What are the things? There will, as I mentioned, there is a lot of life is not perfect. If it was easy, then you don't need me to solve the problem, right? So there is always a lot of challenges. But how do you keep your continuous lens on what might go wrong, what's going wrong, and how do you course correct? And having that ability, the perseverance around being able to sense, that's what was the make and break. And lastly, I will say it is all about the people. Building the trusted partnership relationship that everybody feels that they have an environment that they can thrive, they can share, they can care without having any repercussions for saying something which is not right. So I was the news bearer for many bad news to my CIO, Will Melvin, pick up the phone that this is where we have a problem and we need help. I was not afraid to do that. And I would say that courage and that being able to call that out and help in the interest of the company was my success for the project.
Great. So you are at the forefront of enterprise architecture and AI at TIAA. So how do you personally approach weaving AI, especially the newer agentic AI systems that can act autonomously into big, complex organizations without losing sight of the bigger business picture?
Yeah, I think that's I'll break it down a little bit, because I think it is a very, very important topic that you bring up. Mm-hmm. Not only because you're touching AI, but before I get into AI, I think the role of an enterprise architect is a very, very important one. One of the most important thing, I think, is bringing a clarity and visibility of how the business runs on whichever technology or systems, right? So as an enterprise architect or the lead architect or the chief architect of the company, my number one responsibility is to make sure that we have a common way of describing what the company does and how well it is doing, so that anybody can understand. So defining the what of the company. For TIAA, it is we are the leaders in retirement, wealth management, asset management. So what does it really mean? Breaking that down is the number one responsibility of, right? And then how well you are defining, where do you need to make your investment, how do you want to grow? So that kind of strategy to execution is a job of the enterprise architect. Now coming to AI, it is very easy, again, just because of the coolness, the newness, the possibilities of the technology, it is very easy to go and start applying, very ad hoc way or any way you want, because everybody wants to get their hands dirty, as well as the technology is so accessible that you can speak in common language, right? Especially with generative AI. So what I am doing and what I do with any lens is, but first is creating a very North Star, like almost think about if you are the navigator or you are driving somebody, you have a compass, you create a map, you first show them like where you are, where you need to go, and what are the possible ways you can go, and for each of the paths, what are the trade-offs and the pros and cons. So that's what, for me, if I have this, what we do TI as a business, and case in point, for example, in the retirement business, you are dealing with a lot of, people that are retired, as it says. So you are dealing with older age population. Now, sometimes the cognitive ability might be decreasing on those. So how do you use AI responsibly to help your customers who might be a particular sector of population, might be older population with a declining cognitive ability, right? Rather than applying anywhere else, for example. So really laser focusing on everything the company does, but creating a map for where the biggest benefit might be, and impact and the benefit and the effort of applying the technology. I do this for any technology, but especially for AI. So what I have done is I've created a map, what I call an AI lens of the map, so that if you look at everything we do, suppose we do 100 things, within that maybe 30 things are right in the most impact and benefit you will get for applying AI. So what I do is continue, and that gets continuously renewed or refreshed, because the technology changes, the power of the technology changes. So how and where you apply also changes. So keeping it continuous and current, but having that map, so when somebody is looking at a problem, we can at least guide, is it falling in one of these categories? So that's number one. Number two is now putting the guardrails and which is extremely important, especially for AI. Is it ethical? Just because you can doesn't mean you should. Are you able to apply, like violating any security policies, privacy, ethics, all these guarded policies, putting guardrails around so that nobody can make a silly stupid mistake by unintentionally, right? That's another huge responsibility of architect, is how do you put the guardrails so that people can operate within that safely and responsibly. And thirdly, creating the technology that make it easier for everybody, right? So that you are not doing things, you can focus on business outcomes versus figuring things out. So I would say three ways. A, creating that map so that everybody is clear, putting the guardrails so that you are doing securely, private, complying, adhering to compliance governance and responsibly. Thirdly, having the technology building blocks, the patterns and the blueprints and the code that makes you do the job faster, cheaper, easier, and in the consistent way. And overall, and having this North Star for entire company. So that's what I'm doing, and I'm trying to help the organization with that, and this is an evolution.
Yeah, right. Really great. So, my next question to you is very common, but I want to hear your views on it. Like, do you think that generative AI or agents are out to take people's job? Because I think this is a very common question, but what are your views?
Absolutely. And what I am sharing or talking today is entirely my view. This is not my company's views or anything, right? This is Geeta Pyne and with my lens. So I would say it is yes and no, right? if I think about anything that we do, there are a lot of tasks which are repetitive, which could be mundane, which might be monotonous. We have been age along, we have been automating those tasks, right? I mean, from decades, we have been always figuring ways, especially as a computer science software engineer, we are always looking at how do we get efficiency gain so that it can free up cycles, whether my own cycle or the system cycle, right? So if I fast forward now, when we talk about not only AI, but agentic AI, there are a lot more advances are coming beyond just automation, right? So hence, the first is, are the jobs going to be the same tomorrow? No. If we are thinking, then we must be dreaming or drinking something today, right? So if we were not paranoid about what's happening in the industry, we are actually not watching the trends that are happening. So that's the first given. The way we do everything, so if I break into two aspects, everything in the business we do, say for example, if I dumb it down, there is a workflow associated with it, right? There is some kind of process, notification, actions happen. So I can broadly call that workflow. That workflow, those workflows are all changing. A lot of those workflows will be, where we can, we will be using the systems, we will be using the agents. Now, how we will operate the agents will change. Now, that is one aspect of the work will be changing. The other is the you and I, the humans, which is what the most important thing. I think the questions in the industry is, yes, what are we going to do? I can tell you through my lens, we will definitely managing agents as a human. So what I mean by that, in your payroll, in your work structure, wherever systems, be it Workday, Oracle, we manage Active Directory, there will be agents that we will be managing as a human. So which means how we identify them, what their permissions are they doing things, and who is watching them. So we have to. Now, the optimistic side of this is, yes, a lot will change, and change is the only constant, but the rate at change is so unpredictable right now. Where we, I think the humans, still way advantageous is we hardly use a percentage of our brain today. There are a lot more things that we need to still the brilliant scientists and out there are still figuring things out, is how we perceive, the perception, how do we reason, how do we make decisions. Yes, a lot of these are getting into the agents now. So those tasks can be automated and augmented, but there is a lot still that we haven't even modeled. If we think about the real world, the entire real world hasn't been entirely modeled. Yes, we are talking about digital twins. We are talking a lot about building. But if we think about, I think our ability to, and again, I'm going into a little bit about some of the jobs, the jobs will change, but there are certain things you need to think about where your core differentiator will be. Anybody, especially young people, I would say, go deep into the areas that the research hasn't figured out yet. So this kind of ability to still how human brain actually makes decision, how human brain brings into this 3D effect of the way we see the world. We don't have to think about that. Is it a tree? Is it a building? Is it how much space I have? The notion of a spatial dimension is very common for human, right? We understand very easily, whether you are a kid or an adult. How do you start to, so if you are an engineer, like a junior person, and in academics, go deep in researching some of these things. Don't go into wrappers and easy bit of, there is an API, let me just quickly write a software. A lot of those will change. So if you look at, so I think agents will augment our jobs. Agents, there will be classes and categories of jobs that will be taken, or already being taken by agents, but there is still a stratum where we will. So human being, I think we have to evolve, and I'm very optimistic that that's how I survive across the decades and still being relevant, is you have to rethink, reimagine everything and figure out where we can still, use our brain that we are blessed to have to define critical thinking. Critical thinking nobody can take away from you, so that you can actually instruct, operate this, and put the agents in the right places. Because at the end of the day, today it is still human in the loop. We need to make sure who is accountable for these things. You can get a lot acceleration. If you're a coder, you can get several tools out there, from GitHub to Amazon Q, to get more productive, figure out where you need to spend your energy. So I think the world will be very different. But if I fast forward, and again, just my lens, if I look at, I think sci-fi movies gives us a lot indication of where the world is heading. I have not seen any movie yet that there is no human there. There's a lot of aliens, but still there will be humans. So I think humans are still there. Maybe we go interplanetary, we go to the outer space. I mean, we are already doing that. So, but I think the future is very bright. The future is, the time has never been this good for the entire world to work together, operate and up-level their skills. And who knows what we will discover beyond what we know today. And unless we give somebody else to do that job, so that's the good news. If some agents can take all my meetings, do all the stuff that I don't like to do, I have so much time to do thinking. I have so much time to envision where TIAA might go, right? So that's how I would say.
No, really, very well defined. So, yes. So, Geeta, like in an industry like yours, like financial services, where, regulations are tight and stakes are high. So how do you find the sweet spot where, pushing the envelope with AI innovation and making sure everything stays responsible and secure?
Yeah, and this is where the magic happens, and this is why I get excited about it, right? Boundaries and like constraints are always a good thing. And what I mean by that, here the constraints are, you can't just go away and do whatever you want. You have to make sure that as you rightly said, you are in the regulatory industry, so you are following regulations, you are compliant, you have permissions to do things, so you are not violating anybody's privacy. You are and also it is ethical to do. You also have to make sure that you have the right access to the right data security, posture management. So these multiple things taking into consideration and figuring that out, it is a multivariate problem. And that's where my brain works really well, that when you have too many things to juggle and figuring out, right? So I think the way we do is, again, as I was mentioning, creating a lens on the guidance map on the everything we do, balancing of all, integrating of all these factors and vectors, and applying the risk lens. So there are certain places that might be now how do you get to that level of maturity to be able to do that well, right? So you have to start small. So what we do is, how do you create a roadmap that you start small first? What is your phase one, where you can play safely in your Pandora box that without damaging anything, right? So two aspects of it, where you create an environment almost like an experimentation culture, that you can still learn and experiment before you go abroad, and kind of that multi-phased approach. And then you break it down. If I go one level below, if you just think about data, that data is ultimately what lightens up your logic in AI, or make you gives you the insight and actions. Then what kind of data that am I going to first allow that I have access to, right? If I'm experimenting only with public data, which you and I, everybody has access to, and can I start enhancing that with AI first, till I get my muscles developed, that how I can handle intelligibly. Because so that's what we have built. So we built our policies, we built our platform, so that we can start building this guardrails embedded, encoded in the platform. And we have the increasing complexity problem. Start with keep it simple, stupid kind, right? We started with public search, for example. So I already have data. Now I make it smarter, so you don't ask any question. You don't have to be very specifically, hey, show me my policy. I can give you, knowing you, I can give you something that might make sense and interpret your question in English, right? Then slowly get into, so we break down so my job is to break this bigger complexity into bite-sized variable problems and start attacking one by one. So unpack that, break it down. So there is data, there is identity, there is access, there is security posture, there is integration, there is then UI. So, and then which problem you are trying to. And based on that, start to create patterns so that once you do once, now you can replicate. If you see similar kind of problems anywhere, can I rinse and repeat, and so that I can scale. So that's how then you start unleashing. But what you cannot get away is I always have a governance on top of it. What gets measures gets improved, because you cannot let loose of what, like the whole governance around it. And that's why sometimes you will find things, right? That, hey, I did not, that is where, because this agents learns on their own. When they are learning, you may not have anticipated some behavior. So how quickly can you catch? How quickly can you course correct? How quickly can you block? So having observability, that you can observe with everything, becomes extremely important. So if you are somebody is doing AI or agentic tomorrow, the first thing they need to make sure is how they're building the stack. What is their AI stack? Make sure there are fundamentals of software engineering is not forgotten. Identity, which is what goes back in the first question you asked me, what hasn't changed? Software engineering. AI is probably 5 to 10% of the entire software engineering. So identity, security, and make sure you have observability. If you're not observing, you are going blind. So make sure that you have everything that you can play back, and you can evidence, you can say why certain decisions, you have that understanding of the system. That's what I do. I'm non-stop looking at how do we give that transparency, visibility of everything that is happening in the system, so that, and then also creating that staggered or the stepped approach, that's phase 1, phase 2, phase 3. So you start building with increasing complexity.
Right. No, that's true. So, okay, my next question to you is like, you have been a strong voice for women in tech, right? And a mentor to many. So what's one piece of advice you did give to women when, who want to break into AI or leadership roles, but might feel unsure about from, where to start?
Yeah, so it depends on, again, that's a very good question, right? Regarding, we all have been there. I mean, I was a young girl at one point, I'm still unsure of many things. So don't, I'm not 100% confident in never, then I'll stop learning. I would say the first step, I would say, you have to take the initiative. If you feel you want to try, there is nothing wrong in, you have to take the first step. Secondly, do it in a safe place, maybe to begin with. Start small, but you have to start. If you never start, nobody is going to come and give you tomorrow, right? Be it anything new, right? Anything new, whether it is AI, whether it is some, rocket sciencey job or leadership. I would say first you figure it out. And also what I tell, why do you want? What is your why? Why you are thinking about changing what you are doing to what you want to do? Be it, in this case, let's take a specific example. Somebody goes from a very individual contributor, very strong tech lead role to becomes a manager, right? I always sit down in trying to understand what is your why, what is your driving, what do you want to achieve, what do you think? Imagine yourself in that shoe. What do you think you are doing, right? Because that helps brings clarity into, is it just about you have this kind of a, idea about something will be better, or is it truly you are passionate about? For me, growing people, helping people, bringing the best out of people drives me, which is why I kind of took not just an individual, I used to be the lead architect for multi-billion-dollar initiatives, companies, but I took consciously also direct teams, because not only indirectly, I felt like I can, and I still do. Last night also I was with my India team sitting and helping, getting to the root of the problem, making people understand, right? So I think that I would say the why, and accordingly then you find an opportunity with your, don't try to go and get that first job as a manager first if you haven't done. In your current setup, current role, current company, where you are familiar, so a lot of things are familiar, curve out and talk to your manager, talk to your peer, talk to somebody who is going to take a bet and chance. But you have to stretch yourself. See, first thing, it is you. Do you actually like it? I have seen many people that have gone back that had this kind of an idea of a manager, people leadership. But once they, oh my God, I had to do all this too? No, I think I don't like to. I said, okay, fine, absolutely fine. Go back to your day job, how you are. So that is my advice, is really do the homework in getting to know you. What is your why you want to do? How are you going to think about that you are making, and it is about like making an impact, and are you able to make an impact? And also I would say there is nothing wrong if you try, and if you feel that is not your cup of tea and you want to go back and drink something else, that is absolutely fine too.
Okay.
Many a time I have found that, sorry to interrupt you, Urvashi, I think we also managers don't take the time. Many a time I have found that to bring this clarity and ask those clarifying critical questions to get to that, to help the person also, because we don't know, right? Helping somebody to get to that, do they really want this path A or path B? We also have a fiduciary responsibility to help. And that's what I do many a time. I ask a lot of questions, and because I'm an architect, so I am licensed to ask questions in general. I laugh about that, but I think I would say that, but definitely you should try. Take it on. At the worst case, you might say, this is not for me.
True. So adding to this, from company's point of view, what one practical thing companies can do to create a more inclusive environment that truly supports women stepping into this tech leadership roles?
I think it starts from the top, really make it a clearly inclusive place. And I am pausing because to me, it's not just about a women. I mean, it is still, the numbers are very different. So yes, we have to have a concerted effort. But I think it is about creating a really an inclusive culture and diverse environment, because when we have people that are different and different ways we think, and we bring that different perspectives and mindset together, that's when actually music happens, right? You cannot have the same tone, the same monotone, and the same thought process in every discussions, right? I think if that's always I look for in my team or the top, I think the companies is, how are you creating that culture of inclusion? How are you bringing in the diverse mindset? How are you ensuring there is representation from different sectors, whether it is men, women, whether it is, different disciplines? Because especially if you think about, we talked a little while about AI and the workforces of tomorrow, multidisciplinary is again getting so critical and crucial. I am fortunate that I started my career at ISRO, where I was surrounded by different disciplines, people from physics to electronics to mathematics to computer science to and anything in between, electrical. I think it is getting very important now, because the world is getting a lot converged and hyper-convergence and multidisciplinary. So which means the diversity to me is not about the numbers. Diversity is about truly bringing that thought process and mindset. So I think that's what the companies need to do to make sure when we are hiring, we are not having this confirmation bias that somebody looks like me and talks like me, has the same background. Oh, this person, he or she is very good, right? So being open to be those ideas about how we create that diverse environment. And I can say that I'm very fortunate to work for a company, TIAA, where we have a woman CEO. We have a women of color CEO, and we have like several leaders, men, women from different backgrounds, different countries, including me. I am the chief architect for the company, and I mean, architecture is a profession where you don't still see a lot of women, right, wrong, or different. So I still lead, like all my team are men, other than one woman in my team who manages some of the business areas, right? So long and short of it, I think it needs to start from the top from that. But at the same time, I believe in the company that each of us have a responsibility to do. So if we all take that pledge to make sure that when we are building our team, we are looking into this, holistic angle, and for the success of the company, not for you, not for somebody else. Individually, you are not doing any favor. Create that culture, and each one step at a time. I'm very much into also about like being on the ground, take charge. What responsibility do I take as a leader, and how do we company is a collection of us. So you can have a policy of inclusive culture, but the policy comes into existence with people like you and me.
Right.
That's what I would encourage everybody. Hire people that you have seen exhibits that culture, right? And if you get the right people in the right bus, then the rest will be history. They will go and multiply, get other people that are going to continue to build that diverse culture.
Right. So rightly said, Geeta. So moving to our last question from my end, and then we'll move to Q&A round. The piece of advice that's close to your heart.
Well, I think I would say I'll give you more than one, because I have been so fortunate to touch, getting like so many people, right from my home, like starting with my family, my parents, to education, to now working across several industries and outside industries too. I work a lot with startups and VCs and founders, and that's my sources of learning, right? So I would say number one is don't be so hard on yourself. I'm very meticulous about, and that's what makes me me. I'm very, very particular about getting things done. I'm sure like you, many people are. I have been told many a time, but just don't be so hard, be a little kind to yourself. I think I tell that to a lot. It's not the end of the world. You cannot solve everybody's problem. If something is not done right, just pick yourself. As long as you acknowledge, wake up, and don't repeat the same mistake every time. I think that's something I still remind myself many a time. I would say, and another close, not related, but kind of related, is a long time back, one of my really best manager and as well as a friend, Alan Young, told me, if somebody does not understand your value, it is their loss, not yours. Many a time we kill ourselves, right? Whether it is that job you did not get, or this conversation did not go well, or somebody did not understand, you did your best. And if somebody did not understand your value, that is their loss, not yours. Many a time, even at this age, I still remind that myself when I go through my low moments. Thirdly, I would say, which is not an advice from others, but for me to give to anyone, is continuous learning. Learning never stops. There is no age, there is no time, there is no topic that you cannot learn. And I'm also very fortunate. My husband is a voracious reader, like not only what he does in profession, but he reads pretty much anything to everything, like right from rocket science to building construction to farming and I think that makes you really an open-minded person. And I'm not saying learning just for the job, right? I think if you want to have this heart and the mind open, be able to have this and never get out of your curiosity, never stop learning. As Steve Jobs said, stay hungry, stay foolish, you will not go wrong.
That's really great. Really nice. So let's move to, I can see some of the questions over the chat. So allow me to take those.
Sure.
Okay. So Karthik Chaudhary has raised a question like, how do you think tech debt would change in the future, and why coding has become essential? Would it reduce or exacerbate the existing debt?
Okay, thank you, Karthik, for the question. So again, I think technical debt, and again, I'm sharing this is my perception and my opinion only. I don't think there will be ever a world that there is no technical debt, right? Because of the nature, because of the changes that are happening, and I'm sure that's why you are asking the question specifically about in the current age, and especially when democratization and vibe coding is coming in. So I would say this is where responsibly whether your chief architect and the education has to be in the company to ensure that how much, I think it is always a trade-off, right? Whether you allow a date to happen today or something to how long do you want to take that chance and linger on, and when do you want to come back and fix it, right? So there is always that scale. So today I consider that it is okay to be within manageable about 20% of debt, depending on the give and take the industry. Like for industry like financial and regulatory, if you have about 20% debt in your technology system and architecture, I think which is okay, like because you will always have that. So I think what we need to do is how much is manageable versus before it becomes another legacy. So that while we do experimentation, while we allow whether it is vibe coding, whether it is any other coding, what do you want to gain mainstream, and again, where is it okay to have that? Am I going to do financial transactions or am I going to allow marketing? So in the spectrum of the company, we got to be very, very deliberate and even dogmatic about some of these decisions around where we would allow what type of, just like, if in my opinion, I look at technology when we declare standards, right? For example, of a company, what you can or cannot, or when you need to stay on a paved path versus when is it okay to dirt roads, we define what are the conditions under which, right? Same thing we got to, and the role of architects, role of this thing will become extremely important. Otherwise, as you mentioned, like rightly, tech debt will be like going through the roof and will have huge projects to go and transform. I think we have to change the mindset, being able to have this continuum, and in that path, when am I going, and the different lanes, when am I going on a dirt road? Maybe I'm not saying vibe coding is dirt road, but get the analogy that sometimes you get on that, sometimes you get on the middle lane, sometimes you get on the express lane, and for each lane in the highway, you have different tolls you are playing, and what are the rules of the game you are adhering to, right? The same thing we need to create in the highways, in our technology architecture, in the system, under what condition, which lane some traffic can go, and what are the guardrails and the technology stack that we are allowing to do it, right? But we have to embrace the newer ways and the democratize. I mean, I would say one last thing on that is, the tech debt is, you could use what I'm doing right now, leveraging a lot of these technologies and tools, because I work for 100+ years old company. Of course, I have pretty much like a bag of like anything to everything under the sun, from generative AI, multi-cloud to things that are rock solid or have been there for 100 years. Now, how do you, and if I need to modernize, and I think a part of the modernization could be achieved a lot through this technology tooling and the generative AI. So there are platforms being built, not just the code, but where it can at a shot upgrade maybe a JDK version from X to Y, right? And reduce my tech debt. So I think it is then given the choice, but we have to be mindful about where we are using, and how do we use it to the best outcomes that we need for the organization. So the importance of architects is, again, the chief architects and the architects, enterprise architects are also extremely crucial right now. Hopefully that helps.
Yeah, so we'll take the next question from Sudha. So she said that the books on your backdrop looks awesome. Oh, nice. And any of these that would you recommend to upcoming data architects, or even some podcasts that help?
Sure. Oh, that's a brilliant. Thank you for observing. So yes, so I would say there is a fundamental book on data quality fundamentals. Like this is a couple of years old, but I think if you can see, this is a very good if you're looking at data, because I believe in garbage in, garbage out, and from data. But this isn't just a new book on the artificial, agentic AI that I just received from our offsite yesterday. We had a leadership offsite, and one of the authors, Tom Davenport, he was there in our leadership offsite, had a fireside chat with our global chief digital officer. I think there are books. I mean, depending on, there are a bunch of enterprise architecture books, and I can offline send some names maybe so that not to take time. But thank you for asking that. Thank you for asking and noticing the books. Yeah.
So okay, so we don't have enough time, so we'll take one last question. What do you think? So it's from Sonali. What do you think of the current regulations in the AI industry, and what are the areas do you think guardrails are needed?
Oh, brilliant question, Sonali. I think this is an area that will continue to evolve as we get to know more and more the power of the tooling and what it can or cannot do, right? So I think there is, but the good news is, I think the first time, at least in my career, I'm seeing we are across the departments and groups, even within the company, there is a lot more collaboration and convergence happening in having this dialogue and the conversation. So for TIAA, for example, we did like a responsible AI policy was the first thing we did before even we rolled out any single piece of code, right? So I think, and making sure, especially, I think the regulations will come. Regulations are coming. There are certain countries or regions like Europe probably more regulations than US right now, where I think would be very difficult, very gray still is the understanding the explainability properly about why certain decisions getting made by some machines, right, or the agents, and how do we ensure so what humans, you and I, respect our boundaries. So I'm not going to encroach in but what is going to stop? So I think the regulations, and this is very vague, and I'm giving a vague answer because it hasn't been uncovered yet. Suppose that this communication that happens, and which is happening now, when this when the communication protocols, if on their own, if there could be a new language that comes up and the communication starts getting encrypted, like almost so then how do we observe, how do we govern, and what action should be taken, right? That is one way, agent to agent communication area. The other is when we're talking about software code, I think there is a huge debate going on who owns the IP. When human like you and I coding versus when we are using the coding tools, whether it is Q, whether it is vibe coding, who owns the IP? So I think we will see a lot of things that will slowly settle down over the next few months or to an year that will fundamentally touch. I think the areas would be how software will be, IP of the software would be, how do we make sure the trust boundaries are there so that nobody is encroaching, because it is very easy to go from software to software connectivity, because we want to make things easier to communicate, but by doing that we are not creating our own, digging our holes, and those things will come really quickly. And then the vertical industries, right? What is good in aerospace may not be the same as what's good in financial versus healthcare, right? So more beyond core regulations, specific to data and AI will come.
Got it. So I think time, so we have 5 minutes left. I can take one last question. Where do you think this is from Arjun, where do you think the AI portfolios should reside within the enterprise?
Portfolios, again, in my opinion, so I think there should be an oversight and architecture oversight, architecturally there should be kind of across the company like a platformy thing. But to me, it should be like the use cases must reside with the business, because what drives the value is the business. So, but then having a lens around, which is where the architecture lens I was talking about, to lighten up, to show where the value should be, and keeping a track of which use cases where we are going, and but the actual business use case nobody knows better than you, in my opinion. So they should be federated, use cases should be with the business, and there should be accountability and ownership, just like we do data governance. AI should be, use cases should be with the business. So I don't think, in my humble opinion, my opinion only, the centralized portfolio kind, but having a visibility. But then businesses, because nobody knows their business better than, I don't think I know my business's business better than, no way, hell no.
Nice. So I think we are on time. So just want to wrap up. So thank you so much, Geeta, for the wonderful session. There were, so many valuable takeaways for me personally, and I'm sure for everyone who joined this session today. So if you have any questions or follow-up questions, or if we missed addressing any of the questions during the session, so feel free to reach out. You can drop us an email at marketing@polestarllp.com or connect us on LinkedIn as well. So we are always happy to continue the conversation there as well. Thank you so much.